Hey everyone, Murph here. Just a heads up that we had some technical issues with this recording. You may hear some glitches in the conversation, but this is the best quality we could extract. My apologies, but I hope you enjoy this episode with Randy Sutton.
He hears me at the last minute and he turns and I do like a flying side kick into his sternum area. And he goes down, he bends his body over, and he comes up with the gun. And he and I are literally, our gun muzzles are almost touching. And we both fire at exactly the same time. I fired 2 rounds, and then the nightmare that we all have actually happened, my gun jam. And I'm in a toe-to-toe gunfight. I wasn't wearing my body armor. I fired my gun's going click, click, click. His is going boom, boom, boom. And I remember thinking, this is what it's like to die. And I got no place to go. I'm in the middle of a parking lot. I roll onto my back, and I'm twisting from side to side, trying to get my gun to work, and he's trying to shoot. And little pieces of asphalt are hitting me in the head, and I'm going, is that the one?
Thank you folks so much for coming back. I got a special guest on today, but I kind of say that about every guest we bring on here. This man that's sitting in front of you on the screen is a legend within the law enforcement ranks. This is a guy who started an organization that we're going to talk about extensively here later in our little show. But you're looking at a man with 34 years experience as a law enforcement professional here in our country, part of it in a small town, the majority of it in a big town. When I got a call from a lady that told me about this man, I thought, well, let me look him up real quick because I had heard of the organization, but I had not heard his name. Here's what I found. 34-year career in law enforcement, highly decorated officer, multiple appearances on the TV show Cops. We all used to watch Cops. You can admit it. It's okay. It's like watching Miami Vice. Everybody loves to watch it. Multiple roles in different movies, funded a successful nonprofit organization. It just goes on and on. He's a successful author. We'll tell you about his books at the end. And I got to looking at the board members of the foundation that he created. And 2 of them have been guests here on the Game of Crimes before. We had Betsy Bratner Smith, which is episode 114 back in September of 23. She's the secretary of the foundation. And then Giovanni Rocco. You cannot forget Rocco. He's like the guy that infiltrated the Real Sopranos up in Jersey, right? He was episode 161 in September of 24, and he's the treasurer. But regardless of all this good stuff, it's my pleasure to welcome Randy Sutton to the Game of Crimes. Randy, welcome, brother.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm just excited about it. I'm actually getting goosebumps here because it is exciting. Do you by chance know Bruce?
I do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Bruce is going to be a guest on here sometime, but that man's so busy. It's hard. It's like you. It's hard to catch up with him.
Great guy.
Yeah, he is. He's top notch. So we've got limited time on today's episode, so I don't want me talking a whole lot more than I already have. Can you just give us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, how you got interested in law enforcement, your brothers and sisters, high school, sports, college?
Sure thing. So I consider myself very fortunate because I always knew what I wanted to be, even as a young child. And I grew up in a little town, Princeton, New Jersey, where the university is. And I had a very idyllic life. I had a great supportive family. My mom and dad were both involved in the court system as court reporters. My father was actually a special deputy, and my grandfather was a deputy sheriff who was shot in the line of duty. Survived it, but he was shot by a poacher, of all things. So I grew up with just a mindset that this is the job that I'm going to someday do, and I planned my life around it, even as a young child. So when I was in high school, one of the things that took place, it's kind of funny how the trajectory of how I became a cop. I was a high school student, and the Princeton Police Department, which is only a 32 officer department at the time, they would bring on one junior student as a cadet, and it was an intern cadet, whatever you want to call it, gopher, really is what it was. Yeah. And so once a year they would bring on a cadet. Well, I had an interesting relationship with the principal. I got kicked out of school a lot, and I
sounds so familiar.
I got kicked out of school and every time it was for fighting.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: whenever I was in a fight, it was because I was defending somebody else. And the principal actually knew that, but because of the zero tolerance, I was getting tossed out of school a bit. One day, I had protected somebody and what was in a fight and was getting suspended again. And I'm in the principal's office, waiting for my mother to pick me up again, and I see the principal gets a phone call, and I can tell by the conversation that he's on the phone with the chief of police or the captain of the police, and it was time to pick a new cadet. So I was like this. I'm pointing to myself, going, I'm jumping up and down and pointing at me. And the principal got a smile on his face. He said, "Captain, I think I have the perfect cadet for you." And that's how I got hired as a cadet by the Princeton Police Department. And like I said, it was basically a gopher job, But I got to meet all the cops, and I got to work the desk, and I got to do a bunch of different stuff and learn about policing, and learn the guys that eventually I would work now with. The way I actually became a cop is kind of poignant. By the way, I had to graduate from school early, otherwise I was going to
get tossed.
So I took an extra course load in my senior year and graduated a half year early. So I turned 18 and I graduated from school. They had just changed the age of majority from 21 to 18, so you could drink and you could vote and you could actually become a cop. When they actually had a spot. Remember, these spots didn't open, in this little police department every 3 or 4 years.
Right.
There would be an opening. So there was an opening, and I took the test. Now I'm 18 years old. There's no way in the world they're going to hire me, and I knew that. But I took the test anyway, and they hired somebody else, of course, as I knew they would. But they made me number 2 on the list, never thinking they were going to hire another.
Yeah.
Well, in the weird way that the world works, one of the officers who I actually worked with a lot, who was a permanent desk officer, was a guy named Johnny Markison. And Johnny was this gruff old Navy veteran, right? But he was literally the heart of gold guy. And he kind of took me under his wing and treated me very well, because I worked with him, working the desk all the time. So even though after I graduated from high school, I still kept up my relationship with the department. And one day there was a hurricane. And I mean, this is a real major hurricane, right? And I knew the department was going to be running short. So I went up there and volunteered my time, and I'm working the desk. And Johnny was supposed to come on at 3:00. But I mean, it's a storm, his trees are down and everything. He doesn't show up at 3:00. And everybody's thinking, okay, he probably couldn't get in. And we're trying to call his house, but lines are down. Things are crazy. I'm working the desk. I had to take a bathroom break. I run down to the locker room, and I found Johnny on the floor.
Oh.
And he had come in and had a heart attack.
Oh my goodness.
And so I gave him mouth to mouth, and I yelled for help, and he didn't make it. And so while we're all in shock, right? And one of the sergeants comes up to me afterward. All of us are just heartbroken. And he looks at me and he says, "Hell of a way to become a cop." And that's how I became a police officer. I replaced him.
Wow.
So I am 19 years old, right? They never intended to hire me, but that started my police career. And that was the, but I actually wrote that story. That's in my book, A Cop's Life. It's called, Johnny's Last Day.
I got to tell you, man, there are so many similarities between you and I. You're not going to believe this. I went to high school and college in West Virginia. I grew up in Tennessee, but I went to high school and college in West Virginia, in Princeton, West Virginia. When I was, I always wanted to be a cop since I was a little kid. In high school, they pick who's going to be most successful, who's going to achieve the most, all that crap, most popular and all that stuff. And then they pick people to occupy city government positions just for a half a day or whatever. And I got picked. Everybody knew I wanted to be a cop in my high school, and I got picked to be a city cop. Got a picture of all that. So I'm in college. I got a professor at Bluefield State College, which you don't know where it is unless you know where. If you've ever been to Bluefield, that's about the only way you know where it is. he's the old guy. He says, Murphy, they're going to give a civil service test. You ought to take the test. I said, I'm 18, and nobody's going to hire me. And he said, yeah, but the point is, you're going to get experience. So the next time when you are old enough,
right,
you know what to do. Well, I scored number 1 on the test. I had been the first criminal justice intern at the college because they just started the CJ program, and I interned with the city and I interned with the county. So the city actually hired me 1 month after I turned 19 years old. This was in 1975. I think you went in on 76, right?
Yeah.
We had to, they provided you uniforms and everything. We had to provide our own weapon and leather gear. I wasn't old enough to buy a gun or bullets.
I was just going to say, you had to have your mother buy your bullets and gun for you.
My dad.
Me too.
It's just crazy. The similarities here are just kind of eerie.
Funny.
Actually.
Yep, for sure.
My goodness. So, in our little department, I was actually cop in Bluefield. It was a 35-man department. So very similar to Princeton.
Very similar.
Holy cow. So back during that time, what police academy did you have to go through for Princeton?
The New Jersey State Police Academy.
Oh.
And it was tough, man. So I'm 19 years old. I go into the State Police Academy. My mother had to buy my bullets for me.
Yep.
And you live there. This is a residential. So I've never been away from. And I'm in a barracks, military barracks, with all these cops from all over New Jersey. A lot of these guys, are these kind of guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I swear to God, I learned more in that barracks than I did in the
and bad.
Good and bad. Yeah.
Was the academy?
At that time, it was 3 months.
Yep. So I went through the West Virginia State Police Academy, and it was 3 months, and it was a live-in. You got to go home on weekends.
Yeah, same thing.
Really spooky.
Yeah.
So in your career there in Princeton, you spent 10 years in Princeton.
Yep, I did 6 on patrol and then 4 as a detective.
Was there a point in your career when the light bulb went on and you said, I made the right choice. This is the job?
Oh, I instantly loved being a cop. I never looked back on that decision as far as being a career. But I got bored. I got bored in Princeton.
Yeah.
And it was a small town college town cop. Right. And there wasn't a lot of action. And I was really, I wanted challenges. Mm-hmm. And I was at the top of my pay grade. I was almost halfway to retirement when I made the decision to leave. And it was a tough decision. A, my family's there. Mm-hmm. B, I'm literally halfway to retirement. And when I announced that I was going to be leaving, all of my contemporaries were, Randy, are you out of your mind? You could retire in 10 years. And I just said, I can't do this anymore. And went out and took the test out in Las Vegas and had to start my career all over again. I'm going to go through the academy and literally be a probationary cop again.
Yep.
And very challenging. The Las Vegas Academy was very, very challenging, but never looked back on that decision either. It was the best decision I ever could have made.
How did you pick Las Vegas out of all the places in the United States?
Great question. Great question. It's very interesting how that happened. So I actually I tested at a large police department in Southern Florida. I will not mention the name of the department for an obvious reason, which will come obvious here in a minute. All right. And so I went down there and took the test, and they had it tailored for out-of-towners. So you take the test, the written test, and if you pass that, then you're going right into the physical. And then the next few days, you're taking all the stuff that needs to be done. So they knew that I had tested high enough that they were going to hire me unless something weird came up in my background. So the recruiter said, "Hey, do you want to do a couple ride-alongs?" And I said, "Well, hell yeah." So I go and they teamed me with a guy who had been a North Jersey cop, thinking we were going to do the New Jersey mind meld. And he picks me up at the hotel, and we go out on patrol. And we're not on patrol. It's graveyard shift. We're not on patrol an hour when we get involved in a pursuit. And I mean, this is in the days when the pursuit policy was chase them till you get them.
That's right.
So we are the secondary unit, and we're chasing a motorcyclist. And it is a good one, man. We're going 100 miles an hour. We're chasing this guy through all hell and creation. And he goes into an industrial area, and his skill level wasn't what he thought it was. So he was trying to negotiate a corner, didn't make it, and hit the side of a warehouse wall at about 80. And I mean, he disintegrated. He was a red spot on the wall.
Oh.
The motorcycle disintegrated, and thousands and thousands of dollars in cash started coming down from the heavens. The bike was loaded with cash. Remember, this is during the cocaine era.
Wow.
And when his bike hit, I mean, it looked like somebody threw bushels of $100 bills up in the air. Right?
Thank you, Lord.
And I was like, wow, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Yes. And then what happened was we weren't on that scene for 2 minutes. And the guy I was riding with says, okay, come on, let's go. And I said, let's go. What do you mean? He says, yeah, the primary unit can handle it. Come on, let's go. And I said, but that guy's dead. Aren't your detectives going to want to talk to us? I mean, we witnessed this thing. Yeah, if they want us to call us. Come on, let's go. He couldn't wait to get me away from that scene.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, why does he want me away from that?
Yeah.
And that was my first indication that what I call the ethical environment of that organization was not going to be consistent with my own. And what I saw over the next few days just reiterated that. And I was like, I'm not joining this department. So I get done. I decline the job, and I'm back in Princeton at a detectives association meeting with cops from all over the county and FBI, and I'm telling the story. And 2 FBI agents cornered me afterward and said, hey, if you want to go to a really good department, go to Las Vegas Metro.
Wow.
And that's how I wound up in.
Did you don't have family out there or anything?
Nope, didn't know.
And you're still in Vegas.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm planted here now.
Found a home.
I surely did. No, and you know what? As challenging as it was, my life would never have taken the trajectory that it did had it not been for making this decision. And I got to tell you, there's been a lot of pain along the way too. This has not been, my life has not been satin sheets and great memories all the way. I mean, there's been a lot of darkness. So the challenges of life, and that's what I was looking for. And I never looked back on the decision, despite the pain that went along with it.
Yep. I'm with you, man. I understand 100% exactly what you're talking about. At the Vegas Academy, now we all have things that happen in the academy that, we think are funny at the time, but we might have to do push-ups or runs or write memos and crap like that afterwards. Do you have any of those stories from your academy days at Vegas?
Well, I got actually hurt in the academy. And I got hurt bad and my back, and literally every single day, because if they found out I was going to be gone, right, and I had no place to go, so I literally crawled to my car in the mornings to get to a chiropractor that I went to for like the last month of the academy to get through the academy.
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah, I was in such misery, and of course, all cops get screwed up with in their careers, back issues, right?
Yep.
So then we wound up in a fight with a guy and went falling down a set of concrete stairs and really screwed up my back. So yeah, I've had these issues, but I don't remember any. Well, no, actually, you know what? Now that you mention it, yes, I do.
Yes, there is. I do.
Yes, there is. This was kind of funny. I'm leaving New Jersey to come to Las Vegas. All my contemporaries are going, Vegas, man, Vegas, there's mobs out there, man. That's all corruption. You want to go out there? And then I take the test here with Metro, and I fail the polygraph. And the question that I failed the polygraph was, is there anything in your past you don't want us to know about you? And I told the polygrapher, I said, yeah, of course there's things I don't want you to know about me. And he goes, well, what are they? And I said, I don't know. Maybe I don't want you to know what a pervert I am. I don't know. I can't think of anything specific. So they failed me.
Wow.
And I went, wait a minute, hold on a second. I went to go see the personnel director. And I walked into his office. I'll never forget this. And remember, Vegas is a cowboy town.
Uh-huh.
I walk up, go into his office, and he's got his cowboy boots up on the desk, and he's reading the newspaper. And he just basically puts the paper down. He says, "Yeah, what do you want?" And I go, I said, "You guys failed me on this polygraph." And I said, "Listen, I've been a cop for 10 years. And I know that question that you asked me was an invalid question." And he looks at me, he says, "Well, you are a cop in New Jersey." I said, "Yeah, New Jersey."
You guys got a reputation. I'll tell you.
I go, "Yeah." And then the light bulb went on. I said, "Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. So you think, since I'm from New Jersey, I'm corrupt?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's exactly what I think."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, why didn't you ask those questions then?" He says, "Are you willing to take a whole polygraph on corruption?" I said, "Yeah." They gave me a whole nother polygraph. Do you ever take money for not doing your job? Do you ever trade sex for not doing your job? Do you ever take drugs? I mean, you name it, they asked it. And I passed, and that's how I got hired in the,
Wow.
that's how I got, right? So it's my first day in the police academy. My first day.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is a spit and polish academy, man. You're standing at attention. It's all very, very paramilitary. And the lieutenant in charge of the academy is walking down each row of tables where the cadets are. And he stops at right at my seat. And he says, "So, Sutton." I said, "Sir, yes, sir."
That's right.
And he says, "So you're a cop in New Jersey, huh?" And I said, "Sir, yes, sir." He said, "Well, yeah. Well, then you're a thief then." And I wanted to punch the shit out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
From that day forward, literally throughout my career, I despised that man.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, and he screwed with me my entire career. Literally screwed with me my entire career up until I became a sergeant. And one day, and I hated his guts, despised him.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I was the number one academy recruit, right? I was the valedictorian. I was the speaker. I had everything. My class, my grade point was the highest. So at the very last day when we're graduating, he gave me a whole bunch of demerits, which dropped my score.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was really personal. It was really personal. So so the rest of my career, I hated his guts. He got cancer. And one day he sees me in the hallway and he says, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah, what do you want?" And he said, "Listen, your entire career, I've treated you unfairly. I owe you an apology. You're a hell of a cop, and I should have acknowledged it sooner." And from then on, he survived his cancer, and we became okay.
Yeah.
But
it's crazy. I mean, I'm thinking, when you were telling that your Princeton colleagues were saying, "You're going to Vegas? Do you know there's corruption?" I'm thinking, "You're from Jersey. Of course you know that."
And then how poignant is it, or ironic is it, that I wind up in the movie Casino?
It was Robert De Niro and those guys out there.
Right.
How did you end up in that position?
I was the most featured officer, one of the most featured officers on the TV show Cops, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one day I get a call. "Hey, there's going to be a film shot in Vegas, and the director is looking for realism in the part of a police officer. Would you come down and do an audition?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I walk into this suite at the old Riviera Hotel, and who's standing there but Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese. And it's the film Casino. And what happens in an audition, I came to find out this is my first audition. They give you some lines to read, and you read them with the director. But I started telling stories about being a Vegas cop, and I had them laughing because I had some pretty good stories.
Yeah.
And they said, "You got the part."
Yep.
And that's how I got the part.
That's you guys, LA and New York have the best story. And most of them, you're telling them to other cops because some of you can't tell to the public. They're hilarious. They're unbelievable unless you've been, in the law enforcement culture. Stuff like that really goes on. Before I go any further, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever, in your 34 years as a police officer, have you ever met a police officer that joined the department because they wanted to kill?
Not really consciously.
I mean, none of us want to. But...
I mean, no. When I say that, I mean I don't know anybody that I would say, oh yeah, they acknowledge that's why they joined the department. No, if they did, they would hold that shit a secret, and they would never. Now there are some guys that I worked with that never should have worn a badge.
Yeah,
but I think everybody's got that. Right. But I've never. I mean, I've worked with some idiots, but I don't think I've ever run into somebody that I thought was bloodthirsty enough to, have a hankering to kill someone.
And the reason I ask that is because of the sentiment, this defund the police sentiment that's going.
Yeah.
I know cops just like you. I know cops all around the world. I haven't met a single one yet that said that's why I joined to be a cop. I wanted to kill somebody.
Yeah.
The answer is I always wanted to help people.
That's, you know what, and that's the reality. That's people make it sound like it's very simplistic. Well, it is in a sense, because most cops are actually pretty idealistic people. In fact, some to the point where they get disappointed with the reality of life. They see the underbelly of life, and they get disillusioned. So a lot of police officers, they come into this job with stars in their eyes and thinking, I'm going to change the world. And then the reality sets in and they become very disillusioned. Some of the best cops I know really went through a rough time coming to terms with the realities of the job.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's but you see, that's the great challenge of policing. I was just in Las Cruces, New Mexico. They've had a terrible series of incidents, and they've had the brutal murder of one of their cops, the suicide of another, and then just 2 weeks ago, one of their police officers was sent to prison on a completely justifiable shooting that is about to be overturned. But it destroyed the morale of the agency, and I went down there with my team to help. And one of the things I discovered while I was down there was this is 200 officer department, big department. And I tell you, despite all the challenges that they have, despite the heartbreak, I was so proud of these men and women, the camaraderie, the dedication to duty, the belief in the unity in their department. Their chief is a stud, 100% behind their cops. It really made me proud. And what it showed me was that despite all of the insanity, the nonsense that where police are demonized and dehumanized, the majority of the men and women that are doing this job have a right to be proud of themselves for doing it. And they perform with honor, with integrity, and courage. So I'm proud to do what I do with the Wounded Blue. I'm proud of my profession. And even though I'm no longer active in service, I'm still very much a member of the law enforcement community and working every single day with police officers.
Love it, man. It gets in your blood. You can't walk away from it, can you? That's what keeps me motivated to do this podcast. Is we're almost ready to start our 5th year here on Game of Crimes, and the other thing is we have to live vicariously through what the real cops do now, because we're has. That's the cold hard truth there. I read about a active shooter at a school dance you got involved with. Is that something you're comfortable talking about?
Yeah, it's very much a part of my life, man.
Let us know what happened.
Very much a part of my life. So I came here for action, right? Well, be careful what you wish for, Toto, because you're not in Kansas anymore when you come to Vegas.
Yep.
And I was in my first shooting before I was off probation. I was in a foot pursuit after a stolen car crashed and the driver bailed out, and I was chasing this guy 2 o'clock in the morning. We're going through low-income housing section, and I'm running behind this guy. I've got my gun in my hand. He goes around the corner of a building. I go around the corner of the building, and he's waiting to ambush me. And I come around the corner, and he's waiting with the gun to blow my brains out. And I instinctively fired a round. It literally missed his ear by about a half an inch, but it hit the building behind him, and a piece of stucco broke off and hit him in the head, and he thought he was shot. So he gave up. And then I came to find out he was 15 years old. And now I realized this kid's 15 years old. He's willing to kill me. So that was and I was still on probation. A couple of years go by, I'm now a field training officer. And coming out of dinner one night, Saturday night, 9:00, and my old partner and I are literally walking out, and the tone alert goes off that there is an active crime, and it was what we now know is an active shooter. This guy's dressed all in black, got a shoulder holster on, he's got ammunition draped around him, a sword, and he's shooting at kids at a high school dance. And it's literally 2 blocks from where I am. So as I'm arriving, I see that this guy is dressed exactly like the report. There were 2 people on a double date who were following him, and they were on the phone with 911 going, okay, he's shooting at the kids again. They're diving for cover. And he realizes he's being followed by this car, and he shoots, and the bullet goes between the heads of the 2 couples. At which point the driver said, I've done my civic duty. And away he went. But I get there, another unit, a training officer and his trainee, and they've got him lit up with their spotlights and their headlights. He's walking directly towards them. And I am thinking in the next few seconds, they're going to shoot him. He's going to surrender. He's going to run. He's going to blow his brains out. But he does something nobody expects. He nonchalantly walks towards the cops, calmly puts his gun back in his shoulder holster, and walks right on by him. And I'm out of my car now. The helicopter has gotten above us, and he makes a turn. He starts walking up an apartment driveway right towards a group of people. And I can't let him get to those people. But this isn't just a professional decision. It's a personal decision to take somebody's life.
Right.
So I run up behind him, and I'm going to try and take him physically. I've got my gun in my hand. He hears me at the last minute, and he turns, and I do like a flying side kick into his sternum area. And he goes down he bends his body over, and he comes up with the gun. And he and I are literally, our gun muzzles are almost touching, and we both fire at exactly the same time. And I fired 2 rounds, and then the nightmare that we all have actually happened. My gun jammed. And I'm in a toe-to-toe gunfight. And by the way, I wasn't wearing my body armor. And I fired, and my gun's going click, click, click. His is going boom, boom, boom. And I remember thinking, this is what it's like to die. And I got no place to go. I'm in the middle of a parking lot. And I roll onto my back, and I'm twisting from side to side, trying to get my gun to work, and he's trying to shoot me. And little pieces of asphalt are hitting me in the head, and I'm going, is that the one? My old patrol partner drives in, sees me go down, decides to run the guy over with his car. But what happens in a critical situation, right? We get tunnel vision. He didn't see this big cement stanchion that was in the way. So his patrol car impacted, and it was like a bomb went off. So it didn't have the result that he wanted to, which is to run him over. Right. But the explosion was so loud, it took the guy's attention away from me. And I was able to get up and re-engage him because I got my gun working again. And he and I are in a toe-to-toe Wyatt Earp-like gunfight, man. Literally just standing toe-to-toe, shooting, blasting at each other. And I'm thinking I'm the world's worst shot because he's not going down. And eventually he turns and runs. I chase him. My partner chases him. And he was around the corner, and we just opened up on him, and that was the end of the gunfight. Well, it turned out my first 2 rounds hit him dead in the chest. But it's not like TV.
Right.
And he was still very much a threat. So when I talk to the media now about, why'd they shoot him so many times? It's because the human body can take a lot of punishment, and it ain't like TV.
Right. Exactly. And we're trained to shoot to stop the threat.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, he was dead and I wasn't. And there was no reason for me to survive that. Literally from the gun muzzles touching. And so that was a moment that changed my life. And to this day, it's very much a part of who I am. I mean, I live with that memory every single day, but it also gave me, we hear about post-traumatic stress injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, but there's also post-traumatic stress growth. And we don't talk about it enough. But I fully believe that I became a better cop and a better person that night.
Mm-hmm.
Because it led me to what I call the journey of why. Why didn't I die that night? Why did I survive and he not? And I believe that is because the trajectory of my life, I hadn't completed whatever mission I was put here for. And the search for that mission continues to this day. And I fully believe that it's because I was meant to create the wounded blood.
I tell you what, man, you said you didn't understand why, or there was no reason. There's no reason that you knew at the time. Is the way I look at it.
Right. No, exactly. No, you're exactly right. You're exactly.
Yeah. Holy cow. I've got one question about that shooting. Where was the other 3 cops in the parking lot with you?
Well, funny you asked that. So I go down onto my back and I'm rolling around trying to get my gun to clear, right? The helicopter above us saw his muzzle flash and saw me go down. So what did they radio?
Mm-hmm.
Shots fired, officer down. So now those 2 cops that were there before me, they figure now's a good time to open up on this guy. So their bullets are zinging over my head too. And I don't know who to be more afraid of, right? It was a scene, man. It was a crazy scene. The rotor wash from the helicopter is throwing up sticks and dirt and rocks, and that's hitting me. It was a very surreal experience.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
And that was 1989. Is that when?
Yeah, November 18th, 1989.
That was the same year that my partner and I got in a shootout in Miami, and he got hit. Informant was killed. There's way too many similarities.
Yeah, man, you're not
something, man. Yeah, and I want to get into. There was another event I read about, and I think this might be the event you're most proud of as a police officer, when you had a 1-month-old baby that died. Tell us about that.
Yeah. When we here's the interesting part of this. So I got on the bad side of the sheriff because in Las Vegas police, the sheriff's the boss.
Mm-hmm.
We're a combined city, county, sheriff's department, police department. So I got hired under a sheriff that loved me, and the second sheriff that I worked for didn't love me, and we had gotten into it because, as you might well imagine, I'm very vocal sometimes, and I have no filter sometimes. So I got on the bad side of this guy, and I had been put in charge of a very prestigious unit, and wound up, like I said, getting on the bad side of the sheriff, and as a punishment, they relieved me of this very prestigious assignment. Said, we're putting you back on patrol. My favorite place to be anyway.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, one evening I am on patrol as a sergeant in my punishment detail, and I come upon a vehicle that's up on the side of the road, people running around screaming. I have no idea what's going on. Radio for backup, unknown trouble. Jump out of the car. It's mayhem. I have no idea what's happening, but people are panicked. And I look at the car and there's bullet holes all over the car. What had happened was mom and dad and a little 1-month-old baby in the car minding their own business on the way to the store. And these 3 gangbangers pull up alongside of them, just open fire on the car for no reason. Turned out to be a gang initiation. And one of the shots hit the baby in the face. So suddenly I hear, oh my God, the baby's been shot. And I look down, and in a little infant seat is this little tiny 1-month-old baby, bleeding profusely. The bullet hit her in the face, and her head was only the size of a softball, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I pick her up, and the protocol is you wait for the ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
But this baby wasn't breathing. And I knew that if I waited, that baby was going to die. So the first patrol unit got there. I jumped in. I said, radio, we're bringing in a baby. It's not breathing. And I was able to, so what happened was when the bullet hit her face, all the tissue and stuff went down into her throat and choked her. And I was able to clear it out and give her mouth to mouth and bring her back. And because I was there literally within minutes, no brain damage, get her to the hospital, hand her off, and saved her life. And it was such an incredible moment for me that I went home that night and got the yellow pad out and wrote the story about her, called Her Name Was Jackie.
Mm-hmm.
And that would play a significant role in my life as well. Processing that night had such a great impact on me, because if I hadn't been in the right place at the right time, that baby would have died.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have been there had I not been punished for my behavior. And so it was meant to be that I was there. All part of the cycle that my life has been, right? All part of the journey of why. Why didn't I die that night 2 years before or 10 years before? Because I was there to save that baby's life.
Right.
And so I wrote that story called Her Name Was Jackie. This was 1989 now. I'm sorry, 1998. And then 3 years later, the World Trade Center was attacked. Deadliest day in law enforcement history. And I felt so helpless not being able to help those cops. And I remember that story that was in that drawer. And I thought to myself, every cop I know has a story like this. I'm going to ask him to write it, and I'm going to put it in a book, and I'm going to donate all the royalties to the Widows and Orphans Fund for the cops who got killed. And that book is True Blue.
Excellent.
And that began my writing career,
Yeah.
which continues to this.
Wow. You're talking about you're where you're supposed to be. In my opinion, this is all God's plan for you.
I agree.
I don't know which way you go on that, but that's what I believe. Things just don't happen for a reason. And that little baby, you're her godfather.
I am. Sure.
Oh man. I mean, you talk about a badge of honor. Holy cow. I can't think of anything nicer to do for you.
Her family is very close to me. And here's something interesting. They're from El Salvador. They have a big family. And a few years ago, she calls me and she says, "Hey, my cousin, who I'm very close to, wants to become a police officer because of our relationship. Can you talk to him?" So I mentored this young man along. I tutored him. I helped him with the oral board and all that other stuff. And now that young man is a police officer on the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department.
Wow.
And
Keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, and I mean, it's all because of fate or whatever you want to call
it. And so then towards the end of your career, just quickly tell us what happened, the reason that you were kind of forced to leave law enforcement.
Yeah, I did not intend to retire when I did. I was a lieutenant, and I was a graveyard lieutenant. My entire LT career was on graves, because in Vegas, that's where the action is. And a lieutenant is the last, that's the last rank you can actually go out and do police work. So on this particular night, I had a young cop with me. I would take a young cop with me so I could know my people, because we're a huge department. And we're driving down Las Vegas Boulevard, and I literally felt my brain slowing down, and I was having a stroke. And I stopped the police car. I said, "Get me medical. I'm having a stroke." And it ended my police career.
Yeah.
And it was literally the most frightening moment of my life. I was unable to speak, move. I was crumpled on the pavement, helpless, as tourists are walking by me taking my picture. Yeah, it was, and that was it for me. But what happened next was devastating. And that's that my own agency turned its back on me. Just said, "We're not paying your medical bills. We're not giving you your benefits." And I said, "What are you talking about? You have to. It's the law." And they said, "Well, yeah, we'll make us." And it was shocking to me. It was devastating to me. Now 3 weeks before I had the stroke, my mother died in my arms. 2 months before that, I was involved in a fatal shooting. There was a lot going on. But when my own department just said, "We're not paying your medical bills," bill collectors are knocking on my door, and it's the law. They have to.
Was it because of the sheriff?
No. By now, the sheriff loved me. Different sheriff. And I went to go see him. I said, Sheriff, how do you treat me like this? 24 years of my life that I served with you. And he said, Randy, this isn't personal, man. It's just business.
No, it's not.
And I realized he was telling me the truth, you see, because I was no longer of use. I was now a financial drag. And so they knew that I was going to win eventually, and I did, but it took over a year, and they were hoping I would die in the meantime. And that's a harsh reality to face. Now, once again, here's fate, right? So I win, and then because of being in the movies and being on Cops and being a police trainer, cops started reaching out to me from all over the country. Randy, I know you don't know me, but I was shot in the line of duty. They're not paying my medical bills. Randy, I was paralyzed from the waist down when a drunk driver hit my police car. They've abandoned me. All these heartbreaking stories, not because I could do anything, but only because I was a face that they knew. And I realized, wait a minute, hold on a second. This is happening to me. It's happening to cops all over the nation, and there's no resource for them. All they do is want somebody to talk to because they feel abandoned, they feel alone, just like me. And that's why I created the Wounded Blue. And we are that resource now. We help more than 15,000 cops.
Wow. Well, I did a little research. I found an article about how you created the Wounded Blue and where you got the idea. And it was from another police officer who created Make-A-Wish, wasn't it?
Make-A-Wish, tell you, we need to reschedule another hour, because I wish I could talk to you about all the other stuff. I know we're running out of time, but yeah, the man who created the Make-A-Wish Foundation, most people don't know, was a cop. His name is Frank Shankwitz, and Frank and I became very, very close friends. And he was actually the first board member of the Wounded Blue, and literally friends till the day he died. And he was part of the creation of this organization.
I love it. So one more question, and then I want to mention your books and the things that you're doing. What's the one moment, I guess, or the one thing that you're most proud of with the Wounded?
The lives that we've saved. I mean, we have the National Law Enforcement Survival Summit, which I created 5 years ago. We're having our 5th one September 22nd through the 25th. It is, if every cop only had one training opportunity, I would say come to the summit, because you will be prepared for all things in your career, every aspect of surviving a law enforcement career, emotionally, psychologically, relationships. We've had literally cops stand up and say, if it weren't for this conference, I was going to kill myself.
Whoa.
That's how dramatic it is. So one thing that I am most proud of is the National Law Enforcement Survival Summit and the lives that we are saving.
Excellent. What do you see for the future plans of the Wounded Blue?
We got lots of stuff happening, big stuff. Yeah, we're expanding our services. My dream is that we will become the sought after organization where we will be able to provide psychological care for our cops at no cost.
Well, that's the best. There you go. And we are running out of time here, but I just want to mention a few things. Now, how many books do you have? Because I found 7, but I got a feeling some of them were just updated.
No, I have 4, and my 5th one is coming out in 3 weeks. It's called Rescuing 911: The Fight for America's Safety, and we'll be out. In fact, keep an eye on my website, thewoundedblue.org, when we announce it. And I would love for your readers or your listeners to buy the book and then review it. And it's about how we got to this place in law enforcement, the crisis, and how we need to work together to solve it.
I'll put that on the Game of Crimes webpage. Everybody, I keep a book list on there. Every guest we have on here, if they have a book, I posted it on there. I'd already checked on Amazon. You can pre-order it now. So I will post that for you. You also had the True Blue, I think the first book you came out with, Police Stories by Those Who Lived Them.
My best book is A Cop's Life.
Okay.
Every cop I know should, because it's a rough book, man. It's harsh, and it's also my new podcast is called A Cop's Life, and it's available where all podcasts are living. And I urge people to go up and subscribe and see some of the amazing people that I talk to that are really changing
That's
lives.
excellent. He mentioned that his website is thewoundedblue.org. Thewoundedblue.org. He being Randy, I'm talking, acting like you're not here. He is all over social media. I found him on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, plus his website. And it's all The Wounded Blue. And you can also look for Lieutenant Randy Sutton. Randy, I tell you what, man, I do wish we had more time to talk, but I know you got other people trying to take your time here. I can't thank you enough for coming on, being so transparent about your career and talking about the ups and downs, because you go through events in this job that can leave some people devastated.
For sure.
Get out of bed. And the fact that you are dealing with those who have almost made the ultimate sacrifice, who are now wounded, and I hate the fact that their agencies are turning back on them. And I'm sure DEA, I know there was a time when they would not, but I don't know what it is today. I've been retired too long, but I'm sure there's a time before where that wouldn't have been the case. Everybody, you guys, thank you so much. Randy, any last parting words before we go?
Just, you know what? It is an incredible profession. Be proud of it if you're in it, and you got a right to be proud of yourself.
Absolutely. There's an old saying, you find a job you like, you'll never work a day in your life. We found that job. So all our listeners, guys, thank you so much for coming back every week to join me here on Game of Crimes with Murph in the morning. I can't thank you enough for everything that you do for me, both on the regular podcast as well as on the Patreon side. If you haven't checked us out on Patreon, it's patreon.com/Game of Crimes. If you haven't seen us on YouTube, if you're watching this now, it probably is on YouTube. But if you're listening, do me a favor, go over to YouTube, pull up Game of Crimes podcast, click on the subscribe button, download episodes, leave a few comments, hit that like button. Show the brother some love here. You know why you keep coming back every week, and I tell you every week, just because you like hearing the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game of all, and that's the Game of Crimes. God bless you all. Randy, thank you, brother.
Thank you.